If you feel like your guitar playing has become stale, that is no fun at all. Let me offer you 3 reasons why that might be the case. Reason number 1 is we typically tend to play how we practice. So if you're practicing in a way that sounds kind of stale, if you've just been practicing the same exact way over and over and over again, then your playing is going to sound stale as well. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding with practicing repetition, because repetition is very important. You can't just practice a concept once and then automatically get it down. Sometimes concepts can take weeks or months to get down. So repetition is very important, but repetition has to be at the conceptual level. But if you're literally playing the same exact thing, like the same exact example of a concept over and over and over again, then it's going to start to sound pretty stale. For example, let's say that you're working through everybody's first scale on the guitar tends to be an A minor pentatonic scale. Right? And then let's say that that's how you practice. You just put on a metronome and you go up and then you go down and then you go up and you go down. And this is just what you do. You just go up and down. Then when the band counts you in, you're going to get ready for your solo. You're going to end up soloing like how you practice because that's what you've trained your brain to do, right? So if you want to value repetition in your practicing, make sure that you are repeating the concepts, digging deeper into the pentatonic scale, but not necessarily playing it the same exact way every time. And then this can get into your licks as well. A lot of people will, and I find myself with this inclination, is being drawn to certain licks. So let's say you have a lick that was like, and that was like, you've played that same lick, 500 million times, and every time you start your solo or in the middle of your solo, or maybe you even play that same lick multiple times throughout your solo, it can start to sound stale, right? So how can you break that pattern? One of the easy ways to do it is you can start your lick and then try and get out of it. So if the lick is, maybe after that bend, you want to go to a different string. So that was a different version of kind of a similar idea. So that's a really great thing to practice as well, is to sit down, start with a lick, and see how many different ways you can play a similar kind of a lick, so that you're not actually playing the same exact lick. You're kind of doing iterations and you're changing it every single time. So let's see how many of these I can do. So here's the original one. And then now I'm going to try a new one. And then here's another one. That was pretty different. Here's another one. So now I'm getting kind of far away. Now I'm actually writing kind of new stuff. But that process, I started with the same idea. I iterated on it once or twice, and then all of a sudden I came into this new part. Now I was doing new stuff. So sometimes just making a little change somewhere, even as simple as what I did. Instead of playing one string, try the other string. And then you have a whole new world of opportunity that's kind of opening up to you. So that is the first suggestion, I would say, is if your playing is feeling a little bit stale, You might be practicing in a way that is stale. And remember, we tend to perform the way that we practice. So if you want to perform with more interesting ideas, we also want to practice with more interesting ideas. Now, the second thing that I would say in terms of feeling like your playing is stale is maybe you're not playing from your heart enough. Music is emotional. I think that it would be difficult to argue otherwise. Music elicits emotion from the listener, and some of the best musicians can emote their emotions through the music, right? And this means different things to different people. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be up on stage like crying and bawling or something, but maybe for you, just developing a practice where you can get back in touch with your emotions, with your kind of spiritual core, however you conceptualize that, and making sure that you're tending to that part of yourself and allowing that part of yourself to come through during your performance can be really powerful. And you could play the same exact notes, the same exact phrasing. But if you're not really kind of playing it with emotion, it can really come across super flat. So let's, I guess we'll take that same lick that I just played before. If I just played it with no emotion at all, maybe it would sound something like this. And then if I put some emotion in it, now that's a very tiny little change, right? Not a huge difference. But if you take those kind of little changes and you apply it to the entire solo or the entire song or the entire set list, it really is like a small difference that goes miles and miles and miles. I mean, you can compare this to like being in a relationship with someone. If they look at you and they tell you, I appreciate you. That's a lot different than them like looking you in the eyes and putting their hand on your shoulder and, them saying like, I appreciate you. It's not so the words are like the notes, right? The words can be exactly the same. The notes can be exactly the same, but our intention behind the words and the notes, the way that we say things, can really make all the difference. And that really is true in music as well. A lot of times, the thing that is keeping people from performing with their entire emotional self is that they're unprepared for the performance. So they're feeling very nervous, they're feeling unprepared, and they have to spend all of their mental energy just making sure that they're not hitting any wrong notes or anything like that. And that is a difficult place to be. It's really hard to play from your heart and from your emotions if all you can think about is just making sure that you're playing the right notes. So this is another reason why getting better at practice really helps our performance, because we want to practice in such a way that we're so comfortable with the material that we're performing that we're actually giving ourselves a bit of cushion, a bit of headroom for our mental bandwidth, so that when we're performing, we can focus on things like, how is the audience reacting to the music? Where is the band at? Where am I at? What am I trying to emotionally express in this moment? If we haven't practiced properly, then we're not going to have that space in our mind to be able to truly express ourselves. And that is the goal of so many of the students that I've had conversations with, is they want to be able to express themselves on their instrument. And a lot of that has to do with our emotions and kind of putting that emotion into the music. So that is a very big topic. And there could be tons and tons and hours of kind of one-on-one and group conversations around that topic, but I hope that can kind of give you a little bit of perspective. The third reason why your playing might sound stale is that you're approaching all of your ideas from a fretboard shapes standpoint rather than seeing the music in musical terms. Let's go back to our A minor pentatonic scale, for example. So this one, the one that most all guitar players start with, most people learn that as like a box, right? Like a shape on a page. You've got the notes and the strings and the frets and the box, and you're like, okay, I can see this box, this like shape of notes. And understanding the shape of the notes is really great for teaching ourselves how to play and teaching ourselves how to just get some notes out. But music is not geometrical shapes. What is music? Music, if we want to intellectualize it, music is scale degrees and intervals. Let's talk about what scale degrees are. When we build a scale is made up of notes. Specifically, the A minor pentatonic scale is made up of these notes. Those notes right there, A, C, D, E, G, and A. Those are the notes of the A minor pentatonic scale. Now, each one of those notes has a personality, has a thing that it offers the rest of the scale. For example, the A is the root of the scale. It's home base. It's the thing that everything else kind of wants to resolve to. When we play that A, it feels like a resolution. It's like, okay, now we're home. That is the function of the A note. Now, the function of the C note makes it minor. If that C note was C sharp, you can hear how much brighter it sounds, right? The C sharp would make it a major kind of a scale. But since it's a C note, it makes it a minor kind of a scale. So this scale degree right here makes it minor. If we go all the way up to the G, this one kind of makes us want to go up to the top again. A little bit. Not super, super strong. That's one of the things about the pentatonic scale is that a lot of the notes don't have a very strong pull to another one of the notes. And that's one of the reasons why guitar players love the pentatonic scale so much, is because the likelihood that you play a sour note is very low because all of the notes are more or less pretty stable. But if we were to play another kind of a note, like this, that note, G sharp, that note has a lot of pull. That G sharp note really wants to resolve to A, right? There's that G sharp again, just an octave higher. So that's a different kind of a scale degree that has a lot of tension. But in the minor pentatonic scale, we don't have G sharp, we have G natural. Natural just means it's not sharp or flat. So G natural, this note right here. And that's part of the sound of minor pentatonic, is we have that G note. So it's a little bit easier to see this and demonstrate this on one string which is part of the reason why I teach through the guitar one string at a time in my guitar program. But the real question is when you're playing through your minor pentatonic scale across strings, do you know where the root is? Gotta know where your roots are. Do you know where the C note is that makes it minor? One's right here, one's right here. Do you know where the G note is that kind of wants to resolve up to that A? And then the other notes have personalities as well. Getting to the point where you're not just seeing the pentatonic scale as like just a shape across the fretboard and actually understanding, okay, C to A, G, C, A, D, E, C, G, A. Now it's starting to sound like a melody because I'm really thinking about the notes themselves. I'm thinking about the function that those notes play within the scale, and I'm trying to treat them appropriately. Guitar players are the only instruments that think in fretboard shapes. Piano players don't think about the shape of the fretboard. They don't have a box, they just play the notes. A saxophone player doesn't think about the fretboard shape. The saxophone player is just playing notes. A trumpet player, so on and so forth. Every other instrument doesn't think in fretboard shapes. A shape on the fretboard is unique to the guitar and unique to guitarists. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Learning the shapes of the fretboard makes it easy to pick up the guitar and just start to play something, right? It gets you going. But what got you here isn't going to necessarily get you there. If you want to sound musical, you have to develop a musical perspective on the music that you're playing. And what does that mean? Understanding the notes, understanding the scale degrees, and as I referenced earlier, intervals are very important. Intervals and scale degrees are kind of like two sides of the same coin, and maybe I'll make some different videos on intervals sometime else. But practically, where can you start with this? Just always know where your root is. If you don't know where the root of the scale is, goodness, you're going to be very lost. I mean, think about it. If you don't know where home is, that's the definition of being lost. So you want to know where the root of your scale is at any given time. Super, super, super important. And if you'd like to study any of these concepts in a structured manner with some one-on-one support and in a community of other people that are also studying these things, I teach a guitar program where we get into all of this very specifically with daily practice PDFs and group meetings, and it's really, really awesome. But I make these videos to hopefully just be able to help you, give you some context, point you in the right direction. So if you're in a position where you do feel like your playing is really stale, then remember, the way that you practice is the way that you perform. So try to practice in a way that is a little more interesting. Also, make sure that you are practicing in a way where you have the material down so that you have the space in your brain to be able to express yourself and to put your emotion into the music. And then third and finally, make sure that you don't just have the fretboard shapes down, but that you also understand the scale degrees and you understand the notes that you're playing. Because we don't always want to play from an intellectual standpoint, but if you are going to intellectualize things, we at the very least want it to be musical, right? And I'll leave you with this. The hope is is that when we're practicing, we're not really thinking about anything. We're just expressing ourselves, right? I'm not telling you that you need to think about the name of the notes every single moment that you're up there playing on stage. But but when you're playing on stage and you run into an issue, or you play a wrong note, or you get lost for a moment, it's the intellectualization that's going to help us get back on track. So if you know what the notes are, if you know what scale you're in, if you understand the scale degrees, if you have all of that knowledge, when you need it, it's there. And when we're in the practice room, we're utilizing all of that knowledge to help us get the most out of our practicing so that we can perform to the best of our abilities. That's the idea. At least those are the ideals that I follow and I've been pursuing, and they've been very helpful for me. You know, if you want to just kind of play the same exact songs the same exact way every single evening, then maybe you don't have to learn all the notes and all the scale degrees. But if you're in a position where you want to improvise and you want to express yourself and you want to play it kind of like new and fresh every time, I think it's worth it to put this work in and really understand this stuff. And that's my opinion. So feel free to let me know below in the comments if you feel like your playing has been stale. Let me know kind of how that experience has been for you. What exactly is it about your playing that you feel like is stale? And if you have any recommendations of your own for how to kind of spice things up, feel free to put those down there. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.